as I said, in this region who are sharing with us just their experience, their testimony as it relates to that. And today, brothers and sisters, we have some who's not a stranger to any of you all. If you're familiar with our region, if you're also on social media, we have with us our brother today, Brother Shaheed Muhammad, who is the student minister of Muhammad Mosque number 48 in the marvelous city of Dallas, Texas. Assalamu alaikum, my brother.
Wa alaikum salam, dear brother. How are you doing today?
I'm good by Allah's grace, man. And thank you for accepting the invitation to be a guest on the show.
All praise be to Allah. Thank you for inviting me, brother.
Yes, sir. So we're going to get straight to it, man. I can't wait to hear your responses and what you have to share in regards to this focus that we are dealing with. So let's start off by first, can you share with the audience what inspired you to become, or how did you become a part of the ministry here in the Nation of Islam?
Okay, yes, sir. Well, first of all, I want to give honor and thanks to Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for having confidence in me to help rebuild and try to steer Dallas on a positive trajectory for success. But that question is kind of loaded because it's not something that, that I inspired to do when I got inspired by the teachings of Master Farad and the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. When I read Message to the Black Man is when I got inspired. That's when, I started figuring out or started hearing the things that made sense to me, scriptural wise, made sense to me as being a part of the human family here on planet Earth, and just guided me towards the East. So how I got on the post was the former student minister who was here named Brother Tyrone H. was leaving. He had some family things that he had to handle within his family. He had met the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan at Tennessee State University, and he's the one that kind of pushed me in that direction. I actually, at that time, this was 2015, we had just came off of 10-10-15. We were doing some different things in the mosque, and I was over the processing class. And just one day he just came to me and told me, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan needs you to overnight, these documents to him. He had certain questions that he asked me about me, my family, how long I've been in the nation, et cetera. I overnighted that. And then, the rest has been history. That's how it all started. And that's how the command came down. But when you talk about being a student minister, it's kind of loaded because it's like then you talking about duty. What type of duty am I responsible for? Because the name, those two words, student and minister, when put together, when we're just having casual conversation with us, it can mean different things, because you have student ministers who actually don't run mosques. You got student ministers who just preach. You got student ministers that do, X, Y, Z. So, to accept the responsibility of running a mosque and being responsible for other believers, that's heavy. But, I've always been a responsible person. I looked at it when I was coming into the position of how I ran a middle school. It's just the education, it's theology. But when you're talking about character building, when you're talking about rules and regulations, codes of conduct, when you're talking about financial and fiscal responsibility, when you're talking about, having timed meetings and routine meetings in order to keep the organization moving, and that's what you step into when you say that you want to be over a city, or you're asked to be over a city. And the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad in Message to the Black Man talks about that our people just don't need leadership. They need divine leadership. And the only person that can really put you on this post is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And so that would be the direction when you say that, or it would back up what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, that our people needs divine leadership, is when we say that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is a divine man and he chose you to be over the city, then that's the divine leadership he's talking about. When you're part of different organizations and brotherhoods, then you see the cronyism that takes place at an early stage in the development when people are picked to be leadership, and that always doesn't work. It never works. It's never worked in any organization that I've been a part of, and it never works even in friendship. So that's how it all happened. So I didn't choose myself. I didn't solicit an application to be the student minister of Dallas. I just came to the mosque. I was inspired by the teachings, and I got to work. And the rest is what others noticed about me.
Praise be to Allah. And that is a good segue into our next question. That when you said that the brother asked on per request of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for you to respond to some questions. So, as a result of that, have you ever received any direct or indirect? And indirect can be video, audio, words, words through anybody else, as it relates to guidance from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan regarding ministry? And if so, is there anything that you can share?
Yes, absolutely. On on getting into the ministry, the former regional minister and the one who helped raise the Southwest region, within a week, he showed up at my doorstep with a package of everything and with basically a timeline of things of how he raised the city in general. And I thought that was kind of unique because this is the first time that I really ever saw him at this time since being in the mosque. And and I had templates from when he wrote the alphas, omegas, q's, different people in the community. He gave me a packet, and I think that's what really helped me out the most, so I wouldn't second guess what I know was right and what I know was productive, and not really use loosely, how can I say, religious jargon to not do the right thing. And so he gave me a lot of information, man. You're talking about, the person I'm talking about is Brother Carl Muhammad. This is a person who laid and slept at Brother Jabril's house and spent a lot of time with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So why wouldn't I assist him? And he's in my city. So, he's been the best help that I could have, considering his experience and what he dealt with and how he raised the city when we're talking about building 18 cities or 21 cities in 18 months. So that was a blessing within itself. So again, you're talking about divine leadership, or divine, somebody divinely putting you in a position. Because when somebody divinely puts you in a position, then things happen for you. I know one time, I think you was present the first time that I was at the table of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And he was talking about, just do the work and everything else, and Allah will send you the help. And I guess that can be considered indirect, but I was at the table at the time. And then I don't know if you remember, he had me read the scripture about Matthew, about how you can't love mammon, and I just can't think of the word that it uses in the Old Testament right now. But it's basically you can't love other people in prosperity speaking at the same time. It's got to be in your heart to really want to do this and do the right thing at all times, because the restrictive law of Islam, which makes us a Muslim, that's what makes you a Muslim. The restrictive law, that you restrict yourself. It's not just in front of people. It's how you carry your life and how you build your character up. And, and that type of energy will rub off on people who don't know the nation, and that's what we call genuine love, when you actually are spending time and guiding them and raising them and trying to help them out with the limited knowledge that you have about the nation, even though you in the leadership position, because when we're talking about leaders, the Quran is full of things that leaders would do in times. And one of those is one of my favorite IHATs, which really keeps me facing and keeps my deen sharp, is Surah 2, Ayat 44, where it says, do you enjoin men to do good and neglect your own souls while you read the book? And have you then no sense? But the real thing is what Maulana Muhammad Ali says in the footnotes. He says the leaders enjoin their followers to be good because they could not remain leaders otherwise, but their own lives were corrupt. They read the book and yet they do not follow it. How could the ignorant masses benefit from their preaching? So, we have a lot of self-appointed leaders in the Black community. And if they're not clean or striving to be clean, because you don't know when somebody's totally clean, we live in a world of sin and whatnot. So if you're not totally clean, then how can the people, or attempting to be clean, how can the people benefit from your preaching? You know what I'm saying? When we say that we are constantly striving, and so you'll hear me say throughout this entire lecture, you got to be willing to do the right thing at all times, and keep your restrictive laws in the frontal lobe of your brain, and then think everything else will work out. Yes,
and that's a good. And we were talking about that as we make this preparation, not I said the preparation, make this transition to this next portion of this interview. We thank you for sharing what you have shared. Let's begin to start talking about one of the other responsibilities of a student minister, and that's
Yes.
talking about the lecture delivering and preparation. So, how do you select your topics or the themes for your lectures?
90% of the time, it's message to the black man.
Hmm.
Final Call newspaper. When it comes out on Tuesday, no doubt. Just looking through it, and just the feel and energy that you're getting from the people throughout the week. I deal. My occupation is I'm dealing with people all the time. When we talk about education, I'm around students, I'm around different age groups all the time. So you kind of just feel the people, and then because when you're preparing the lecture, it's like you got to do it on all three levels.
Hmm.
Your lecture just can't be about, oh, we just gonna talk about this certain thing and this, and no, it can't be like that because you got to know your who. When you're teaching in a classroom, you got to know the different levels of students who you're talking to. So I'm talking to those who are just coming in here in the nation for the first time. I'm talking to those who maybe just joined last week and they returning. I'm talking to the believers that's there. And then you just got those who are just coming just to be coming because somebody invited them and they never got. So it's like, so when you tailor it, the subject matter is critical, but it's the delivery of the subject matter which is more important, and how and the type of words that you use to make sure that the listener can understand. Again, how can they benefit from your preaching if you're corrupt also? You see what I'm saying? Because that's the whole point of us getting up there on Sundays, or inspiring and motivating those around us is so they can benefit for what we've been studying, and that we can really attract them and transfer that electricity to them, so we can get them moving in a progressive manner.
Good. And when you talk about the titles and the themes of it, now in regards to what's your preparation process? Like, there's some people who they might reserve a day, they might reserve 2 days. There's some people that work to start writing everything that they're going to say, they write it out. Some people just do, some people just may watch a lecture by the minister and just pattern after that. What's your preparation for the
Again,
delivery?
again, yes, sir, brother. It's message to the black man. So I do a lot of message to the black man, considering that Sunday is for the guest, and particularly for the guest. So I'll choose subjects that's dealing with that, and since I'm doing PowerPoints, I'm taking some from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I'm taking some from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I'm taking some, maybe some article in the newspaper that I'm putting in, and I'm clipping it in there. But also at the end, there's an exit ticket for all of the students in the class that they got to take. So I use Poll Anywhere, Everywhere a lot at the end of all my lectures, and then I show it on the screen while the audience is going through charity and the other motions before we close out. So that's pretty much my platform. When we're talking about Bloom's taxonomy, using the Nation of Islam content. Um, so it's no different than a teacher preparing for their class. If they understand their content and they understand their pedagogy, you understand what I'm saying? So if you know how to deliver it, then you just transferring the content. So I feel like I had a lot of practice delivering subjects while being in the classroom, by being a middle school teacher, by being a principal, by addressing administration, by addressing the community. So when I given the opportunity, and Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is giving me confidence to deliver this content in a certain way, then that's how I'm even explaining it to him. This is what I do, this is why I do it this way, because this is the training that I've received. You know, yeah, I'll leave it right there. Yes,
And
sir.
how do you, when you say, elaborate some more when you talk about the polling anywhere, like how do you specifically use that at the end of a lecture?
Okay, so say for instance, like, okay, sometimes you have multiple choice. Sometimes I'll just leave it open ended. So we'll use multiple choice questions. Say if we're talking about who is God, all right, or God is a man. I'll put that because that's the first chapter message to the black man. God is a man. So as we go through, and I'm listing the different scriptures, the Genesis 15s, the Genesis 18, showing Abraham talking to God. All of these things. From the content section that's proving that God is a man. Then I may take one question out of there, and it may be at the end because I know the mind of a student. It may be something that I covered just at the end. So I may say at the end, God came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, and this is why we led it up to that, right? So the question will come up: who appeared in 1930? A, B, C, or D? Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Brother Willie Muhammad, Master Farad Muhammad, or Joel Osteen? You know what I'm saying? And so, and so they see it on the screen. I'm getting them used to it. And that's how we do that part of the exit ticket. Some of them are just surveys. So where say, so tell me how you like today's lecture. And so while things are going on, they see their stuff pop up on the screen. And the more people who are saying the exact same jargon, the bigger the word is. So it'd be like a word wall, a word map, so to speak. So I use all of those concepts that, that educators use in the classrooms to continue the education of adults.
And it's like an informal assessment to make sure that that they grab the main point or the main points of the actual lecture. So that's good. That's innovative and that's creative. And since we're talking about lectures, has there ever been a time when you prepared for a lecture and it did not go as planned? And if so, how did you handle it?
No, I couldn't say it didn't go as planned. Maybe I couldn't finish it in time because I'm
Mm-hmm.
not. Okay, not go as planned. Yeah, I couldn't get through it in 45 minutes because I
Mm-hmm.
limit myself to 45 minutes no matter where I'm speaking at or where it goes to, just because of the attention span and the
Mm-hmm.
type of students that we have in the classroom. Um, so that's when I'll get into, well, we'll come back, I'll leave a hook at the end or something like that to kind of entice them to come back, because once they get into our system, we have a text message system where I can just send them something real quick from my phone and say like 3,000 people will get it real quick that's come through the mosque. And so I will utilize that to get them to return. But that's probably like the only instance where I can say where I planned for something and it didn't finish because I may have elaborated too long on a certain point, because sometimes within the lectures I do ask the audience, do you have a question? Do you understand what I'm saying? Because again, how can they benefit from my preaching if I'm not trying to teach them and now you just want to hear me talk? I'm not studying just for you to hear me talk. I want you to react. If you just come to hear me talk, then it's going to get frustrating because I don't do this for that. You understand? I really am, I know time is limited. And so I don't have time to be wasting on people if you're not really trying to build a nation, and with everything else as student ministers that we have to manage when it comes to family, wife, and all these other things that we got to manage that may just hit us out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
So just even with that alone, planning is very important, and sticking to the plan is very important. And I give this little tidbit for leadership too. Sometimes another person's lack of preparation does not justify an immediate reaction on you. And you have to understand that just as a man. Just because somebody is asking you to do something at a particular time, and then the question that they're asking you, they didn't prepare for it right, but you got something else to do. Sometimes you may just have to do what you have something else to do, because that's just how it is. A lack of planning, bro, with everything else. So a respecter of time. That's what I loved about Malcolm X. They would always talk about Malcolm X. He always respected people's time. Yes.
Beautiful, man. And when we were talking about still dealing with the lecture aspect of this, um, has there ever been a time where when you reflect back on your ministry, where
Mhm.
you had to deliver, it was a challenging lecture, or and if so, how did you navigate that challenge? Like I spoke to Brother Robert from Austin, the last interview that we
Mhm.
did, and he was talking about, the difficulty of just doing janazas. And I spoke to
Oh,
Brother
yeah,
Demetric, and he
yeah.
talked about how one of the challenging lectures was preparing to do the lecture that he delivered at Mosque Marion. Has there ever been like a challenging lecture, and how did you navigate it?
Oh man, I would have to concur with our brother from Austin. Like I was on the post, maybe 2 weeks, and I had to do a janaza.
Mm,
Yeah, with no information. So I'm calling, I'm getting on the phone, I'm calling people, within the city. Do you got this? Do you got that? And we made it happen. And then not only that, mind you, I didn't grow up wanting to be a preacher or anything. So getting in front of people and talking about their loved one, someone that I may have not known, um, um, making sure you say the right thing. You don't want to hurt anybody's feelings by what I mean. This was all new. Now that's totally new to me, So, I just had to suck up my fear and just roll with it.
mm,
And that's basically how I got comfortable in doing them.
mm.
But I was thrown in it early. So you pray, you get up and you go to work.
And that's interesting in regards to what was this other question? It just came to my mind. I wanted to ask you. Oh, You mentioned in regards to, I know that you have several of your own and several of the school, your own schools, right? You and your family. And then I know you opened up a business. It was like a activity, a fun activity place for children. In the you're a member of a fraternity, there's a bunch of other stuff that you do. You
Mm-hmm.
know, what advice can you give to those who are in the ministry or those who aspire to be in the ministry of how you balance that? Because this is not like, you're not in a position, of many of the ministers in the Nation of Islam are not in a position where we do this full time. What tips would you give to people that can help them to be able to balance all of these responsibilities?
Man, it's really planning and staying focused that Allah wouldn't put this on you if you couldn't handle it. You
Mm,
know, um, we do have the schools, we have the indoor playgrounds. I do have, the lodge stuff, the Kappa stuff. All of this is all encompassing, and then you got the nation, and
mm,
all of this is pulling at you, at all times. So the balance, man, like the Quran said, man is ever struggling for balance. It's not something that I can say that I mastered. And then putting in the time with your wife, putting in the time with
mm,
your children. I got girls too. I got more girls than boys over here. So sometimes I struggle at it, and sometimes I'm good at it, and just finding a balance. But I gotta have a piece of it all. Considering that I am part of two other brotherhoods, it's all encompassing because both brotherhoods deal with God in one aspect or another.
mm,
So that's the beauty of that. But on that side, even though I'm in positions with these brotherhoods too, I'm not just a member. I'm in positions to help move these brotherhoods.
mm,
I take it as a badge of honor, really, that Master Farad would allow me to get the knowledge to be able to talk to people in different walks of life,
mm,
and being open minded about it. Because I definitely am not one to try to use a religion to be compulsory to make you side with me in my beliefs. It's more of my actions. So the balance of it, man, if my wife wasn't understanding, this would be a wrap.
mm,
To be honest with you, if my children wasn't understanding, this would be a wrap. But I will put in that time with each and every one of them, and they understand the importance of it, especially your wife.
mm,
My wife is registered. She's an MGT. Um, I'm registered. We got registered at the same time. And so just that whole dynamic, and then we got 6 children. We own our own businesses. She was a VP in accounting, I was a principal, all of these things. And so we're moving in different directions all over the place. And now I'm in a different stage of my life now where now my children are going to college. I have my son is probably going to go pro early in soccer. So it's just a lot right in this particular moment now. So if I do um, make a mistake and something becomes unbalanced, it probably could be detrimental. Kind of like what the minister was talking about in closing the gap when people are in transition. I'm in that type of transition in my life with my little ones and with my family.
mm. Beautiful. And what would you say are some common misconceptions about being a student minister?
That we know everything. And that if it all depends on like again, you just can't say student minister because leadership is broken up into different facets. Everybody coaches and teaches different. You know what I mean? We all learn the same thing, but it's something about us that's different. And that's what makes us excel or decel with whatever it is. So um, I'm more open minded. So I would think one of the misconceptions that I thought that I saw coming into this position is that you have to wait on me to do anything.
Mm,
So all of my at the beginning, majority of my lectures, majority of my speeches, or majority of our leadership meetings was about, man, if you're doing the right thing, don't worry about it. Just let me know that you're doing it, and it's cool. And so um, having to be involved in everything, that's another misconception. We are believers, man. We are family, and the biggest title that we can have is brother or sister. I'm your brother all day. I don't even consider, I say I'm the team leader. You know what I'm saying? I'm not really as because they'll use that student minister label and put you in these clouds. I
Mm,
don't want to be in the clouds. I'm on the feet with you, on the ground with you. So so that's a misconception, man. The more that we do together and exemplify our unity, the easier this is. Many hands make the work light, and that's just not a slogan.
mm,
You really got to get in here and get busy. Um, and play your part and don't worry about nobody else's part. So I think
mm,
that's some of the misconceptions, that it is that everything has to be ran through the student minister to get things going. I mean, it does. Of course, you respect the structure. You got to know what's going on in all facets, because if we're the leaders and we are held responsible for everything, we got to make sure that those who are captains are not abusing their power, because they're using our leadership power. They're departmental managers over the people. We're the CEOs sitting in the cities, and then we got departmental managers helping us in all of these different areas. So of course we got to do checks and balances all the time if we want to be productive. There's no doubt. There's no doubt about it. Now, how do we address the issues? That's another topic. How do we move past? How do we grow? How do we make sure that if we are not moving in the right direction, how do we turn to the right direction where somebody's feelings don't get hurt and we can still progress?
mm,
That's something totally different. Yes, sir.
mm. And you've mentioned the word leadership
Mm.
several times, and you even outside of the mosque, you've been in the positions of leadership from with your school, your business, and even as you said, I thought it was a very good point that even though you are part of these other brotherhoods, that you're not just a member there. You're not, you just didn't say, well, I'm gonna come there, I'm just gonna be a member, but you have accepted leadership positions in those organizations as well. What advice would you give to those who are watching this, who are student ministers over a mosque, over a study group? Like in your tenure, when you reflect on what you've experienced as a student minister over a mosque, what leadership, what guidance or points could you give that someone can hear and begin to start trying it out and to be effective at leading the study group and leading the mosque?
Seek out those who've done it before you.
Mm,
Those are going to be some of your best teachers. They know the city, especially if you're not growing the city from, like, you're not the beginning of the growth of the city.
mhm,
Find them, seek them out, get find out how they made the connections with different groups within the city. Because the whole point of us being in the city is to unify the city. That's the whole point, and do something for ourselves. So you got to find those mentors. Those are what I would call mentors. You got to find those community organizers that you can learn from, that's been working in your city for a long time. You got to go find the elders. Even if you got to go to the geriatric homes to find them, you have to go find them and ask them questions, because they have nuggets for you that you don't even know that God left there for you. But you got to go seek and you shall find, ask and you will be answered. You know what I'm saying? Knock and the door will be open. But you got to do something in order to receive the reward that you envisioning that should happen. So that would be the main advice that I would implore and say. It would behoove you to seek out those who've done this before. Like, I mean, I got in the city. I mean, I met Isaiah Kareem's daughter, those who were around during his time. I met all the different eras of the Nation of Islam in Dallas.
mm,
And just sat and just asked them uh, point straight up questions. Because if you're going to get into this, and especially if you're one that's over a mosque, and the dangers of it, also the benefits and those things that can happen, then you want to get to know what happened before. You got to research the history so you don't make the same mistakes, and then bring them up on the team, because then they can see something that maybe you can't see. So you got to have it. It would behoove you, again, that if you didn't have a council that you can talk to within your own city about everything, and it stay between y'all,
mm,
because you got to have some people like that. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says, who delights in another man's fish? You know what I'm saying? Go get those sheep that hear your voice in your city, and keep it up. When we was during COVID, and he called us all up to Chicago, and he said that we should be kings in our city. Well, what does that mean? You know what I'm saying? That's not a slogan. What does a king do? What type of connections does a king have? You know, a king is basically an influencer. You know, how does he treat the women? How does the queen get 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 what she wants over to the king? How does she approach the king? Is it just, brother, you need to do this, or is it she uses her femininity and he sees it and be like, yeah, that's a good idea, and we roll it like that? You know what I'm saying? So it's how you work your leadership position that's going to yield the results.
What do you, and thank you definitely for sharing that. Two questions come to mind because you mentioned, was it brother Van? What was the brother who used to be the regional student minister?
Brother Carl.
Brother Carl. I'm thinking my brother Van's and people talk about him in the southern region. You know, sometimes people have had struggles with being over a city, and now like they're over a city, mosque or study group, and then that they're former laborers who were like in your situation, his brother was a former regional laborer, right? So how do you manage that? Because some people have struggled in that, and that can be, we have seen where that can become a source of tension when you have former laborers now, and they're not having, they don't have any rank, but they're still there. How have you managed that?
Um, I can't say it's a magic pill, but you know, you have to definitely in the initial meeting establish you're the leader.
Mm.
That has to be known point blank. You understand that this is the relationship we have. That I'll listen to you. I understand that this will work, but I may not do everything that you're suggesting that I do. And if I don't do it, don't get mad at me. I mean, just let straight up. You know what I'm saying? Because if we're men, we can talk like this. You know what I'm saying? You want to see the city successful. I want to see the city successful. Tell me something about. I mean, you're not on the post anymore. We didn't got to get into all that. But what were the things that you did that were successful? How did it start? What were some of the restraints that you had to go back and okay, we had to do it like this because I shouldn't be doing the same thing. You know, in one of the organizations that I'm part of, which is the Lodge, the Masons, right? You only a leader there for maybe a year. You get voted in every year, right?
Mm.
But once you become a past master, that's what they call them. They have obligations to the lodge and to the next leader. You see what I'm saying? So you invite them back to the East. And those who are in this know exactly what I'm talking about. So the system, that system is automatically set up for mentorship. You understand? So us with supreme wisdom have to overcome our emotions in order to grow into the thinking of God. Because you can't make anybody do it the way you want it to be done because that's not the gift that God gave them. They may hear you, you may have similarities with that person, but it's always going to be something different because two raindrops and two snowflakes, as Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says, are not alike. Even though they feel alike and they may taste alike, they're not alike. They're different.
Mhm.
So I can't give you a magic pill or a magic wand that'll say this is how it happens. I only can tell you how I introduced myself and the relationship has been beautiful ever since. Even if we have a state of tension, again, we're men. We can discuss this, and there's no emotions involved at the end. We'd be like, bro, I can't talk to you no more, or I can't be like this, or my feelings got hurt the way you talk. No, bro. We trying. The whole goal is we want the city to look good at the end of the day. And if I can get you in the classroom that you had with you that was productive to help me, then we all win because we got to pass the baton. And you can't pass the baton watching in the background. You got to get involved. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes, you know, it becomes a balance because then you may have the new ones that's there to be like, well, this person ain't doing enough, or this person ain't doing that enough. You can't, bro, I'm not gonna give a 70-year-old man 1,000 stack of papers, black. You know what I'm saying? And then get mad because he don't want to push them. That's not intelligent. You understand what I'm saying? That's not intelligent. That just lets me know where you at in your thinking of what the Nation of Islam is. You need the paper to be pushed, but everybody, when you grow in a nation, man, everybody has different talents in different areas, and you got to be able to ease them in them areas so you can be productive, man. You know what I'm saying? It's just like the U.S. military, there's basic training, but then they go into their specialty fields.
Beautiful. And you mentioned the word mentors, right?
Yes, sir.
So can you, is a two-part question. Can you speak on the value of having a mentor being a student minister? And do you have any mentors any other student ministers who are like mentors to you, and how has that benefited you?
Oh, okay, yes, sir. I think what draws me close to other men and older men is me not growing up without my father,
Mm,
and my mom having me at such a young age. So she had me when she was a teenager. She was 14. So growing up with her, having friends who had positive male role models in their households, and I'm learning from them, made it natural for me. Her putting me in mentor programs as a youth, going whether it's boxing activities after school, whether it's self defense, basketball, whatever. Anytime you have a man, helping out a single sister, those were the situations I was in Kansas City. So for me, it's a vital need of importance. Even before I said I do and was going to marry uh, my wife, who we've been married for over 20 years now, I sought out one of my friends back home whose parents have been married for 30 years. And I sat down with them and just discussed everything about, just two cultures coming together and X, Y, and Z. And so I've always sought that out, and I've always benefited from wise counsel. And so I'm never going to stop that. Some of those who help out, of course, is our brother in the Southwest region, Dr. Halim Muhammad. Brother Carl has been beneficial. We have several brothers here locally, whether it's Brother Greg Muhammad, whether it's Brother Verb, and those who've been in these seats before. I can just pierce and ask questions to. One who was a great mentor, who may Allah be pleased with him, was Brother Shaheed from the West Coast. He was a great mentor to me. We would talk a lot. And it would be early in the morning too. When you get up for prayer and then we checking on each other, and they 2 hours ahead, and he's still on. I say, "Oh, brother, you own it, huh? It's 3 o'clock out there." You're like, "Bro, I'm up." So he's been a good mentor, and some of those who I met, on the journey, Brother Solaritus. If I have questions, I can reach out to Brother Ishmael. So I feel confident that I can ask these brothers any questions that need to be answered. But again, it's got to come from someone genuine who wants the people to benefit from the teaching that they're spending time putting together. And you were not just up there just to be seen as well-dressed mannequins. That's not what it's about. We're trying to be a productive society in a society that is fallen. And if we're not productive in a society that is fallen, then we're playing ourselves. You know what I'm saying? And we got to really, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad said, he's like a man. This was Don Minister Louis Farrakhan said that he said that he's like a man standing in front of the grave trying to slow it down of us rushing ourselves into the grave. You can do that ignorantly, or you can do that with supreme wisdom. This is how you want to do it. Which way you want to go in the grave, So you got to check your nafs and look deep inside yourself. So when you do find that mentor, they can feel your spirit too, that it's not really about you. It's about those who even they tried to help. And now you trying to do the same thing, and it's not about you, it's about them.
Yeah, and that is great counsel, man. Great advice. And you mentioned earlier when I asked about the question about the misconceptions, you talked about how people thinking that we know everything, or even some student ministers thinking that they know everything. Another misconception is sometimes that people tend to think, not everybody, but some people tend to think that student ministers don't have challenges, right? Like every time a student minister comes to the mosque, they may be exempt of the challenges and the trials that the average believer may go through or going through. So my question is, how do you stay motivated and inspired, especially during those difficult times?
Leaning on my mentors. Leaning on, because that is the main point of having a mentor, to keep you inspired. Because anytime we have a lot of pressures. So, if you don't have someone who you can bounce stuff off of, then again, it's just that's the use of counselors in this world. They have counselors, people you can talk to. That's the use for auditors, people who you can talk to, who you can bounce these things off of, man. But we definitely as student ministers have our own challenges. We have our own things that we learned how to be patient with. Um, and it just comes with it, brother. But I tell a brother any day, bro, I quit this thing every day. Every day I quit. Now I get up and go. I get up and go do what I'm supposed to be doing, and next thing you know, 8 years then passed. So I reach out to. It's just like I went to Nashville. My son had an MLS tournament down in Nashville, and it was the first time I met Brother Samuel X
Mm-hmm.
in Nashville. And um, and so you build those relationships with student ministers like that. And so I went. I didn't have that much time, but I at least made time to go see my brother and go see where they at, shake hands, whatever you got to do with the limited time you have, and just introduce yourself to that. You got to be assertive like that, and in that conversation, there's mentorship going on. There's exchange of ideas going on. There's oh man, I ain't the only one that's dealing with that. Ooh, I thought I was the only one, bro. So how do you handle it? I do this. Okay, bet. Okay, now okay, it kind of makes sense to me. Those things like that is what helps you and keeps you motivated in this work, is that you do have those, and it all boils down to the brotherhood.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a brotherhood, man. We can't hide things from each other. We really, when we talking to each other, and when we're at close intervals and we can be intimate and talk, then we have to talk, because I mean, you got to have somebody to talk to.
That is true. Thank you for sharing
Yes.
that as well. And we talk about this, and my next question is, can you discuss a time where you may have received constructive criticism on your lecture delivery, and how what was the result of that? How did it influence your approach after that?
Um, I just listened to them, and then just started tailoring it to everybody, um, because of course the way that I deliver it today is not how I delivered it back in 2016 when I first got on the post. Even how I set up the slides is totally different now. I don't even do the same type of flyers. So I mean, you just evolve with time. When I first got on, there was a lot of criticism. You have those, I would say, that are just lifetime critics. It don't matter. They're gonna criticize you. They're gonna come in your office. They're gonna tell you, brother, you didn't say this, or you didn't do that, and it's not this. It's on behalf. It's I mean, they would be like straining at a gnat, as the Quran would say, to try to get your attention. But you listen to them, because again, that's a test on you. That's a test on us to be able to take in that type of criticism and not get emotional about it. You can be like, man, I did do that. All right. Just listen to it, and take it into consideration, because next week you got another chance to try to win that person over. You may say something and look over at them, you know what I mean, and be like, maybe, and they smiled, and you just slowly but surely start winning them over. And you may be doing the exact same thing you did the previous week. You know what I'm saying? It's just how they wanted to get your attention. so so you like Jay-Z say, man, you just brush it off your shoulders, man. But you got to mature into that, to where it doesn't affect you emotionally and you start having self-esteem issues. Because criticism can affect your self-esteem, and if all you hear is critical remarks about what you do, then you start to question the person who's actually saying it. Because with anything, with any job that you take, with every endeavor that you employ in, you there's got to be a mixture between good and bad. People have to know how to criticize you, and how you start out with the good, come in, but maybe you should have done it like this, and then come back with the good and leave them on a high note, and then work it like that. But that's again, that's like, um, the maturity level of the individual that you're dealing with.
Thank you. And in your years of being in the student ministry, when you reflect over, I'll give you some time to think about it. What are several of the several of the profound, several lessons that you have learned that you would like to share, in addition to what all the stuff you've already shared, but several additional lessons you've learned from being in the student ministry?
I would say, listen to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Number one, keep your eyes on the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Don't take your eyes off the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Go find lectures that's dealing with what you're dealing with personally, and let him fill you up.
Mm.
Not just listen to him for content purposes for your lectures. Look for a lecture that you need to hear for yourself. Self help. Always think self help, bro. You got to, because if you aren't inspired and you ain't motivated, then it'll trickle down. So you got to keep the top of the pyramid tight. Um, and also know that we all aren't, as he says, as Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says in the restrictive law book, just because we have been raised don't mean that we finished. It's a continuous process until you become one with the Creator, right? So just be cautious and use an attentive ear anytime that you're around a group of Negroes, no matter what their title is. I think that would be better. It's kind of, I can give you a scene for those who, how when I don't know if you have seen the movie The Mac, but when he got out of jail and he wanted to start his little his business up, he went to the barbershop and he didn't say nothing. He just listened to what they was doing, the problems they was going through, and then he created his business in a way that it would be more productive than theirs because he had answers to their problems. He had solutions to what they were talking about. And so he became the most productive one, but and at the same time became the most envious one. It's like Joseph in the Bible. Your brothers may get envious of you because you're successful, because they want. It's like they want the parents' attention more than you. And you're just being yourself. So that's critical, man. Mind what's inside of you. When I mean mind, I mean like dig like you're mining coal. Mind what's inside of you. Pull out what's great about yourself, and stick in it and stay in that lane, and massage that and grow that until its maturity, and always seek out those who are positive, who have this positive counsel about them. They're not always negative. I mean, the ones who are always negative because they just can't help themselves. You know what I'm saying? It's always going to be critical with them. But once you know a person, then that's just what it is. It's a marriage. When you just say, okay, this is just how this person is, and then don't get emotional about them doing what they always do. And then it'll benefit you because you need that type of criticism in a way, and you can kind of see what angle they're coming at, because they're going to see stuff that you can't see at the same time. So again, that would be some little tidbits that I can think of right now. Yes, sir.
That's very, very good tidbits, man. Just like a lot of the other stuff that you've shared throughout this interview. And I pray that those who are watching this, who are in the ministry, who desire to be, that they take heed to what you're sharing, and we are almost close to the end. I want to ask you a few more questions, two more.
Yes,
so do you have some type of system or mechanism by which you evaluate the effectiveness of your lectures that you deliver? If so, what do you do?
Well, poll everywhere is one. I think I mentioned that
Yeah,
earlier.
that one.
Again, it's the effectiveness of my preaching. So, are those on my staff? Are they asking me questions about the lecture? Did you even listen to the lecture? You see what I'm saying? Because I got to make sure we all won in this. Because I'm not just picking subjects just to be picking subjects. Yeah, and so that lets me know the effectiveness of it, because I'll ask questions. We have our own little group chats that we have internally, or like an intranet that we use in the mosque. So I'll post a lecture, and I'll post a poll question about the lecture, my lecture that we did the previous Sunday. What do you think about this part? Explain this. How would you explain this to the lost found if they heard this lecture today? So that lets me know how engaged even my staff and those who are already registered are, how engaged they are with the lecture. So those are checkpoints. And then sometimes, like this lecture I'm giving this week, it was a sister that actually came up to me and said, we haven't talked about marriage in a while. Can you talk about marriage? So I've been dealing with this for about 2 weeks now, what I'm going to talk about tomorrow, which is marriage, love, and business, and how it's all one, really. So I do things like that. And then I'm going to circle back with this particular sister and ask this, okay, so what'd you think about it? And because what she's telling me is she's not the only one that's thinking about that, especially when you're dealing with single sisters. They want to know the ins and outs, the things that you go through as married couples, the business part of it, how it's a partnership legally, all of that. So so I do things like that, brother. I poll the believers internally a lot.
That's good, man. That's the when we talk about the history that has been given to us by Master Farah Muhammad, when they talk about the scientists going out and studying the thinking of the people, that's what they were doing. And they
Mhm.
responded based upon the thoughts, based upon the data that they have. And you're in the field of education when they talk about data driven instruction. And I find that doing that makes whatever we're doing more relevant to people, and it's
Absolutely.
more meaningful because there's a host of stuff that we can come in and talk about. But if we're not touching on what people are dealing with, it's almost then the equivalent just standing up there not saying anything, because we could be talking, but if that's not what addressing what they're dealing with, is like like they ain't hear anything.
Right.
And so you mentioned about marriage. This is the last question.
Mm.
How do you what's your techniques as it relates to dealing with when you're providing marital counseling for married couples, or even believers who are in the process of courtship?
I use my life as an example.
Mm,
I've been with the same sister since we were teenagers, since we were young.
mm,
Um, I share with them the ups and downs. I share with them, mending things that may happen when you're mending both families. I share with
mm,
them some of the things that my mentors used to tell me, and still do. If I need some type of marriage, now don't think that I don't need any marriage advice. That's where I would mess up. You
mm,
know what I'm saying? Because I don't have it, but
mm,
I have it enough to where we've been together all these years. So um, that's what I use, those examples. And then like when we do weddings, you're supposed to have, those who've been married 5 years, 0 to 5 years, 6 to 10 years, and on up. That comes down during the wedding, before the couple, and that's their mentorships.
mm,
That's their counsel. You know what I'm saying? So when we're doing the wedding service as prescribed by the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, then they'll have those mentors from the jump. You know, um, and so we talk about that and the reason why. I mean, think about this though, brother. I mean, it's like, man, I come from a single parent home. You got those who coming into the mosque from single parent homes, or they living with a sister. You got all these situations, and then it becomes conflicted. They become conflicted about what they should do. We
mm,
have I have couples that I can pull from that were just shacking up with babies and this and all that. Then they hear the word, then next thing you know, he's texting me. I don't even have to really, tell him, bro, you got to get married, bro. But I do tell him the importance of family. You know what I'm saying? They know. And so then he makes that commitment, because 9 times out of 10, she's waiting on him to do it anyway.
mm,
It's just him. So, and so just being that example, keeping my door open, keeping my line open for them, man, I've been able to help a lot of young people out in their marriage, just by that alone. And if they're struggling, man, I'll call them out to the house, and me
mm,
and the wife can talk to them. You know what I'm saying? And then you can get a real conversation from both sides.
mm.
We ain't gonna hold back. We done did it all too. So it's just beautiful to be able to give back in that way.
Beautiful, man. And that is, listening to what you shared, it makes me think about what I heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan say one time at the dinner table. He said that every problem that we have in the Nation of Islam, we have the solution to, you
Hmm.
know. And each
Hmm.
and every one of us, the experiences that we've had prior to the nation, the experiences that we had while in the nation, all of this is part of the teaching and training, specifically in preparation and development by Almighty God Allah. And is something that we have to see the value of one another's experience, and then allow people to take that experience, the successes and even the things that are not successes, because all of it is learning, and
Yes.
we use that to begin to start building our nation and helping it to move forward, ultimately, as you talked about, for the benefit of our people. So I thank you, brother, for what you shared. May Allah continue to bless you and the believers there in the city of Dallas, Texas, man. And inshallah, you're on our list to have come here to the city of New Orleans as well, man. So
Oh,
so
praises
that's
be
the
to
goal that
Allah.
we're actually working. We just gotta, after this post-COVID, the finances have been tight, but you're on our list, man. Have always been on the list, but inshallah,
Brother,
we
I
want to
come
do
down
this
there on
sooner than
GP.
later.
You look at what down there last week.
Oh, you should have came down, man. You should have came down for
But
the
I
for
couldn't.
the mighty essence.
Yeah, me and the wife, man, we usually go, every year. I mean, and again, again,
Hmm.
you gotta vacation with your wife,
Yeah,
man.
you
You
definitely
gotta get
do.
some downtime and turn your phones off, brothers. That
Hmm.
is so important in the ministry class within itself. If you take
Hmm.
a vacation once a quarter, do it, man. Weekend staycation, whatever. Just get
Hmm.
away from all of the stress. I mean, all of these things that we talked about today is how we maintain balance. And if any one of those things overtakes the other, then we're gonna be glitching like in the metaverse. It's gonna be like we in the wrong time zone. So,
Hmm.
I pray that, that we shared, or that, that Allah blessed us to share something with someone who's inspiring to do this work. And because after me, it's going to be somebody else. And then after them,
Yeah.
it's going to be somebody else. So, inshallah, they can pull up YouTube in the future and say, I have a testimony. And they see me and Brother Willie in the year 3020 talking about what they're having problems with. You know what I'm
Praise
saying?
be to Allah, man. But this is it, man. And I thank you for what you shared. It's very practical, my brother. What you shared, very sincere and very genuine. It didn't have, to me, it didn't have any fluff in it. You basically just shared, and it was sincere. And I pray that people who are watching this, that they actually take advantage of it, especially those who desire to be in the ministry. So thank you, my brother. May Allah continue to bless you, and make sure you give everybody the greetings there.
Yes, sir,
Assalamu
I
alaikum.
will, brother. Wa alaikum salam.
And we thank each and every one of you all for tuning in. And I pray that you found the benefit of this interview and the jewels that brother has shared and from his experience, And for those who are in the student ministry, brother Shaheed is not beyond reach. He's always open and accessible, and he'll be willing to help those if you need. So reach out to him, especially if you're in our region, or even if you're not in our region, reach out to him. So as we get ready to close, brothers and sisters, we want to continue to, if you want to do any type of advertisement here with our station, feel free to do so. You can reach out to us, and what you can do is, you know, just reach out to us. We can tell you about the actual ads and different things that we have in our that you can run. It's very affordable. Just reach out to us. Don't think that you don't have the money, right? Reach out to us, and we'll work out something specifically for you as well. And so we thank you for those who will continue